Before I start comparing the Arai XD4 to the Shoei Hornet, I want to point out the three major components that make an adventure helmet or dual sport Hornet helmet different than what you would normally have on the street. The two most obvious things are the bill and the peak or the chin bar that protrudes. And those are really important because that bill is what allows us to shade the shield. When you get dust on the inside of your shield, outside and inside, you can tilt it down and shade it. Once you shade it, you can see again. It also helps protect that eye protection or the shield, the visor on the helmet if you're going through heavy brush or something like that. The lower portion here, that protruded chin bar, is about increase the amount of breathing space inside the helmet, because off-road we tend to breathe a lot more and a lot heavier. And it also, the third component, is really maximizing ventilation on the helmets. Those are the three components that make these helmets unique compared to a street helmet. So let's take a look at how the Shoei and the XD4 compare to each other. So looking at these two, the first thing you'll notice is the bills have a very different design. Now, I've owned both these helmets for a long time. I had the XD, the original XD back in 2006 when it was the newest helmet and the only helmet that followed this style. And I picked up the Shoei in 2015 when it came out. Both of these haven't really changed much since the original helmet came out. The XD has evolved, but looks very, very similar and feels very much the same. Weight matters on a helmet. And if you have the Shoei, you're going to be packing around 4 pounds, 2 ounces of helmet every time you put that thing on your head. That's 1,814 grams. That's a heavy helmet, no matter how you look at it. The Arai XD, it gets the win at only 3 pounds, 10 ounces. That's 1,642 grams. And it doesn't sound like a lot until you put this on your head and you start bouncing down a trail. And it makes a difference when you crash because it's less likely to cause a neck injury because of the reduced amount of weight on your head. And the more consistent benefit to you is just less fatigue while you're riding. And fatigue is what leads to making mistakes and crashing. So the lighter helmet, especially on the trail, definitely the XD4. When it comes to maximum ventilation, Arai gets the win on this one. They have a chin bar vent directly in front that closes on the outside and on the inside. It has 2 side vents. It has good airflow across the bottom with no air dam. It has exit vents, helmets, vents on the top, and also vents built into the shield. When I'm riding off-road and I really need airflow, the Arai, even though it feels a little more constrained inside, the chin bar actually flows better wind. On the trail, that's a huge benefit. However, on the open road in really cold temperatures, it's much harder to close down this venting and that cold air continues to flow. On the trail, the Arai wins. On the road, I'll take the Shoei. The Shoei's not really a slouch on ventilation either. It's just not as good as the XD4. It has vents on the exit for the top, which you cannot close. It has a single vent on the top that you can open, and it has some chin or forehead vents just above the shield that allow it to open up and flow there, and then one single vent on the chin. This helmet also comes with an air dam that goes underneath that helps control the airflow. The flow of air is good. It's just not as good as the XD4 if you're looking for maximum flow at lower speeds. Think trails. But when you're on the open road, it definitely closes down a lot tighter. The other benefit of the Shoei is it definitely does a better job of defogging the shield. If I'm going in slower speeds, not like trail speeds, but slower road speeds, there's still good flow that will help clear the shield on this, where the XD4, it always seems to be steaming up on me. The shield on the Arai looks more like a dirt bike helmet. That's when it came out, and the primary goal was that shading factor that I just mentioned. Where it comes up short is it's solid. That means it can catch a lot of wind and it can move around a lot. And depending on the motorcycle that you're riding, that can really be a pain. Also, they still have a tool requirement to remove the visor. And for a helmet that's this pricey, that seems like a pretty big shortfall for Arai. If you look at the Shoei helmet, it has a massive gills or venting, 6 of them actually across the top, and it has a very large gap on the backside, and that's to create better airflow through the visor, which decreases the amount of lift you get so it doesn't feel like the helmet's pulling back on you. It also makes the helmet quieter as you're riding. As far as quiet goes, the Arai can be a quiet helmet, but it depends on the motorcycle. Every bike I've ridden on the Shoei, it feels good. For the Arai, it depends. On my BMW GS with the stock windshield, regardless of the position I have the windshield in, the helmet's always noisy and I feel a lot of buffeting on the helmet. When I was riding the 2021 Tiger 900 Rally Pro, then the helmet was perfectly quiet whether the shield was up or down. It's going to make a difference on how tall you are, what bike you ride, and what the shield is on it. Where the Shoei doesn't seem to matter much at all. Eye protection is definitely something we have to consider, but I don't honestly wear goggles almost ever. The only time I wear goggles is when I'm on the trail. If I'm on the street or I'm traveling, I end up carrying a set of protective eyewear. My choice is the arc lights because they do slide in well underneath, and I have interchangeable lenses that are impact protection. They cover very well all the way around. Not as well as goggles, but they're a lot more convenient. And when I'm riding off-road, I want to be able to open up that factory shield to, again, get that extra ventilation on my face. The last big complaint I have about this helmet is that it still has a fairly steep peak. That means that the shield comes to a point and it throws the optics off when I'm riding, and it doesn't seem to vent very well. It fogs up very easily, and there's no pin lock system available. You have to buy a shield from Arai that has that anti-fog in it. It's expensive, and of course you have to use tools to install it. Here's a few more details that are going to matter. If you're a person that likes to do a lot of camera or video work like I do, you're going to want a helmet where you can have a chin mount camera. The Shoei is the easiest to mount to. The chin bar on this is long and it's relatively blunt and flat. The mount I put on this is just a standard sticky mount that came with my GoPro. Very easy to put on, very easy to access. The Arai also has a chin mount, but I had to order a custom mount that fitted around and below the vent on it. Little extra investment, but once they're both on the helmet, they both function just as well. If you're waiting for a definitive answer, should you get the Arai or is the Shoei number one? It really depends on your personal needs. These are both premium top-level helmets. And when I looked on Revzilla, they were exactly the same price, dollar for dollar. If your main goal is to ride on the trail and off-road, and you're using your bike primarily as a dual sport or even just a big dirt bike, then the XD4 definitely has the advantages in that environment. Better ventilation, and it works better with goggles. If you're a dual sport rider or an adventure rider who spends a lot of time on the pavement, or if you have to ride a long distance to get there and you have to ride in cold weather, then definitely it's the Shoei that's the better all-around helmet. Still works very well on the trail, and it works much better on the street. Thanks for watching the channel. If you're interested in the other things that I do, the training I do around the country, or if you want to join me for a trip in Africa or Nepal, check out my website at www.bretttkacs.com. Make sure you hit subscribe, click like, and consider joining me on Patreon. Thanks again for watching the channel. Remember, smile while you ride, because attitude matters.